And welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul joined alongside Robert Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia. And Ziggy, we thank you for being here because we know you're under the weather. You said oncoming cold, you can feel it. So thanks for soldiering through this record today.
I'm here for the fans, Paul. That's all we're here for.
Yes, you're one of the best in the business. Dude, I remember when we both had COVID at the same time, just getting FaceTimes from you or calls from you and your 104 fever, whatever it was. You're like,
that was worse.
Yeah. And I was towards the end of my sickness. So I was, in general, pretty energetic guy. And you're just going, all right, Paul, like, I got to go to bed now. Kind of getting the similar vibes here on this record.
Nah, we're good. We're good. There's plenty. This time there's exciting football to talk about.
Yeah. That was back in the spring of 2021. So now here we are. NFL offseason, really underway at this point. If you're enjoying this content, please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the NFL draft. We have some videos that are up and down, Ziggy. So some of them really contribute towards that 10,000. A couple flop here or there. You could go check out our AFC West videos. We have a bunch of those that just came out and a mailbag from earlier this week. It looked like you had something you wanted to say there.
I was going to say, any Packers fans who are watching this video might have an idea of which videos flop and which ones don't. So if y'all could we appreciate the support. But, we do talk about things that are not the Packers, and it's about the same quality of discussion, though a little bit less painful for us. So we wouldn't mind a little diversity.
Definitely less painful. But yeah, we'll have a ton of NFC North content. We have a little bit on the Bears at the end of this episode. But for today, what we decided to do, we were really on the edge of deciding to not do the division breakdowns. But ultimately, it's a great opportunity for us to dive into some teams that we don't talk about as much during the regular season. So we will try and get familiar with them heading into next year. And we decided to soldier through. It's really Ziggy said, you know what, let's do it. He made the executive decision. So we're going to talk about the NFC West today. And we'll start off with the San Francisco 49ers, who, as we all know, just recently lost in the Super Bowl. And we're going to focus this around one conversation particularly, Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy this year, statistically, one of the best seasons you could really have. Highest QBR in the league, highest passer rating, 31 touchdowns, was third in the NFL, fifth in yards, fourth in completion percentage. Statistically, Brock Purdy is a very, very good quarterback. And, I think a lot of people around the league really like him, but then, of course, there's the group of people around the league who don't. So what I want to ask you, Ziggy, is if you were a 49ers fan, I don't want to say, do you believe Brock Purdy can win the Super Bowl? Because he just got there, and it feels kind of dumb to say, can he win one? Because they were right on the verge, a couple plays away. But do you believe in Brock Purdy as a franchise caliber quarterback for the 49ers?
A lot of that just depends, I think, on what you take franchise caliber quarterback to mean. Here's what we know about Brock Purdy. Mm-hmm. Brock Purdy, over the course of a season, can sustain high-level production. And, of course, there was some luck in that, like there always is when guys do really well. Of course, there were weapons around him. But to people who say just anyone can operate this offense, it is so much better than when Jimmy G was there. It's a million times better than all of the undrafted free agent quarterbacks they tried to cycle through whenever Jimmy G was hurt. It's way better than when Trey Lance was operating it. So clearly they've got something in Brock Purdy. Now, like most teams in the NFL, I think the 49ers are going to keep their eyes open. If there's a real chance to upgrade at quarterback, they might take it. But there are so many other things going on for them this offseason. I think it's going to be very difficult to justify any move away from Brock Purdy, and I'm expecting continued production into the future.
Yeah, I don't expect Brock Purdy to be moved on from anytime soon. This would be more of a situation where somewhere down the line, a quarterback, if the 49ers could get Caleb Williams, I would say, yes, go after Caleb Williams. There are teams, if the Packers, for instance, had the shot at Caleb Williams, I'm probably rolling out Jordan Love next year. You know what I mean? That's where I feel a franchise quarterback, someone that I'm very confident in, can be the guy going forward. And Purdy to me is someone who, he is very good. Like, I don't want to make it sound like Brock Purdy's not a great quarterback, but when I go through the league, listen to this right here. Yeah, I ranked it before the show. When you're talking about quarterbacks in the league, I'm probably taking Dak, Hurts, Jordan Love, Kirk, Goff, Stafford, Kyler in the NFC. So already he's eighth best in the NFC to me. In the AFC, then I'm going Burrow, I'm going Lamar, I'm going Herbert, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. I actually think I might take Purdy over Tua. Is
I
that?
would. I would.
I think I would. Lawrence Stroud, and I'd take Anthony Richardson still. Like I'm bullish on Richardson. So that would have him 17th best QB in the league.
And
And when I say he's a really,
well,
yeah,
just
go
say you
ahead.
take out a few of those. I mean, then he's 14th, 13th, 12th. He's nowhere near top 10.
Yeah. So like, and some of those conversations are close, but the same goes the other way. There's a few guys that where maybe like Baker's could be close at times, although I'd prefer Brock. But yeah, so he's about a league average quarterback, even though I'm sitting here saying he's really, really good. And I think those two things can coexist. You can be very confident that Brock Purdy can take you on a deep playoff run, but at the same time, be aware in the back of your mind that yes, there are better options out there. And if the opportunity presents itself, we've seen that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are not hesitant to pull the trigger and make a big move for one of these guys. So ultimately for me, that's where I come down. I like this guy a lot. Next year, I'm very confident that the 49ers are the number one team who can win to come out of the NFC right now to go to the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I'm going to keep my options open. And it seems like you agree with that.
Yeah, well, the 49ers are going to face a tough choice next offseason because Purdy is going to want a close to top of the league extension.
Yep.
And I mean, you've seen it now. Deebo Samuel's getting paid a lot of money. George Kittle's getting paid a lot of money. Brandon Ayuk, they're going to have to either trade him this offseason or pay him a lot of money. Christian McCaffrey, right? And it's just impossible to keep all of those guys. So they're either going to have to cut back on the spending on defense or prepare to see what Brock Purdy can do without some of those weapons. So the 49ers are going to be keeping a close eye on him this offseason and this regular season. But the big question for the 49ers, I think, this year is just what the heck do you do with Brandon Ayuk?
Well, I mean, Ayuk, he seemed quiet to me. When, like I didn't, my head is dived headfirst into the NFL season with producing it, doing this show. And Brandon Ayuk, I know he had great numbers, but I wasn't hearing a lot about Brandon Ayuk other than when I was specifically seeking it out. Dude had an awesome year. It's just, do you think he's worth big time receiver money? Statistically, he is.
I think he's worth it more than Deebo Samuel.
He's a better receiver than Deebo Samuel. Most people would say but Deebo's a phenomenal playmaker. Like, who's more valuable to the 49ers, Deebo or Brandon Ayuk to you?
Brandon Ayuk. I don't think it's particularly close.
Okay, I bet a lot of 49ers fans. Now, maybe that's just because of Deebo's popularity.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is just Brandon Ayuk. Here's the thing about Brandon Ayuk is he's more valuable to the 49ers than he is to any other team. Brandon Ayuk, there are a lot of other teams that could use a playmaker like him. But Ayuk, after sort of getting out of that early career doghouse, there are some games in the season. I mean, how many games did he have this year where he went over 100 yards? Like
no,
8 or 9?
He's capable of taking over games. I just think I know that Ayuk's a lot. Ayuk is what? How many years younger than?
I believe he's 3 or 4 years younger. Ayuk's 25. Deebo, I believe, is 28. And
yeah,
Deebo has a tough injury history.
Yeah, Deebo has tough injury history. I do think when he's available, Deebo is more valuable than Brandon Ayuk. I know you disagree with that. I just think Deebo is a phenomenal playmaker. But when you take into consideration age and the injury history, I mean, yeah, it's a tough decision on Ayuk. You probably got to give him the money, though. He's earned it with the way he's played recently. I actually really, just to go back for a second, I think it was really a fascinating thought about what San Francisco will do when Purdy ultimately demands more money, which he rightfully should. The guy has only lost a handful of games in his NFL career. The problem is with those losses, we saw it this year during that 3-game skid for San Francisco. Purdy was really bad, and he at first seemed invincible, and then we saw this year that there are some chinks in the armor, and when he's off, I mean he's really off, and he actually cost them games. He wasn't good against Green Bay. He wasn't particularly good against Detroit. But to be fair to Brock Purdy, when it mattered, he got the job done. So I think this year is really going to be the critical year. If he has an opportunity to earn that contract, whatever he's going to ask for, if he goes out and balls out again, it's hard to look at the situation in San Francisco and say, let's pass this up, because you're right. The San Francisco offense is way better with him than it was with really any quarterback they've had recently. So I think we just have to wait and see on year 3. Seems fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. But it's the 49ers are going to be facing tough choices next year. So I'm curious to watch what they do this offseason to try and prepare for that.
Yeah, and you know, that window too, it's still open for them to win, but with all the skill players they have, the injuries, like you said, next year is a huge year for San Francisco in many ways. It could be one of the final years they have of a big time Super Bowl run before money becomes an issue too. So we'll talk about the 49ers a lot. We just wanted to hit on that off the bat. Let's move on to your team here. The Los Angeles Rams, a team that you predicted at the start of the season was going to go on a run, and everyone laughed in your face. I'm pretty sure we had Ariel Epstein on. She was the only person that I can remember who said, yeah, Ziggy, I kind of like this pick of the Rams to go on a bit of a run this season. Because when you looked at it at face value, it was Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and then a bunch of nobodies. That's what the Rams were coming into last season. And gosh, they just proved everybody wrong. And by the end of the year, we're one of the most dangerous teams in the league. I think, Ziggy, if they had beaten the Lions, that they were a major threat to go to the Super Bowl. That's how well they were playing.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget they did lose to the Lions, but that was one of the closest games of the entire playoffs, right?
Like what were they? A penalty away from kicking a game-winning field goal?
And, you know, this Rams team, as they're going into this offseason, the big problem everyone had with them was that they were starting a bunch of unproven rookies at key defensive positions, just about every single one. Well, all those rookies now, many of them played pretty well, but they've got another year of experience.
Yeah, no, I was looking today along the inside. I think on this Rams team, the offseason goal has to be improving the defense. We'll talk about the offense in a second. But on defense, you know, you have Aaron Donald there. Kobe Turner was really good on the inside with him, a rookie. You drafted another rookie in Byron. Oh, was it Byron Young? I believe had 8 sacks this year for them.
Yeah, I believe that's the most of any rookie in the league.
Yeah, so you hit on 2 rookies there. I mean, obviously we know Puka and Kyron Williams were amazing on the offensive side of the ball, but if they can shore up that secondary and get another edge rusher to come in, you could potentially look at a Josh Allen or a Brian Burns. There is free agent money that could be spent there. All of a sudden, if this defense gets things together, I think we're looking at the Rams as the most underrated Super Bowl contender of 2024.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most resources the Rams have had going into an offseason in quite some time. They've got basically all their draft picks, including their first-round draft pick since Jared freaking Goff.
Isn't that insane that they've gone that long without a first-round pick?
Yeah.
And are still this competitive?
It's unbelievable what Wes Snead has been able to do. He has been able, more than anyone else in the NFL, to consistently identify late-round cheap talent at key positions, right? I mean, it's not just the defense. Puka Nacua was a revelation last year. Oh, so you look at what the Rams have been able to do, there's no reason to believe they're not going to be competitive.
I actually think Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC heading into next season. I know that we broke that down on a recent episode, but the way that he came back this year and played, when he was in, I mean, we saw what the Rams looked like without him. I think they had, was it one game with Scott Tolzien against the Packers?
Terrible.
I mean, that
typical Packers luck, by the way.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Packers luck. But Matthew Stafford could take this team from, you know, the young, inexperienced, likely to get blown out a few times to legitimate Super Bowl contender. I thought he was phenomenal all year. And then you look at, we mentioned Puka and Kyron Williams. Listen to the numbers. Puka had 105 receptions for 1,486 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. I didn't realize throughout much of the year. I knew Puka was great. I had him on my fantasy team, watched him all the time, loved him. I didn't realize until late in the season just how many yards he was putting up. And Kyron, our guy from ND, you know, one thing about Kyron Williams that I've always loved is the work ethic. Dude was 6th string running back going into his sophomore year at Notre Dame, battled his way up the entire offseason. I mean, the guy just works and works and works, grinds and grinds and grinds. Great teammate. And you could tell very quickly from the moment he got in, he was going to be useful to this Rams team. He ends with 1,144 yards and 12 touchdowns in only 12 games. They go get another receiver to pair with Cooper Kupp and Puka. I think we're talking about a very, very dangerous offense.
There is one thing to watch out for, though, which is the Rams are going to need some help on the offensive line. Brian Allen and Joe Noteboom, they've been inconsistent, but they have been decent contributors. Coleman Shelton did a good job stepping in, but they're going to need some replacements on the offensive line. That's going to be one thing to watch. But if they can get just one or two more good offensive linemen and a couple pieces on defense, as you say, I think this team is a real shot to run the NFC.
Here's the last thing I want to ask you before we move on to the Seattle Seahawks. I just want to know, better chance of making the Super Bowl next year, okay? I'm going to ask you, Rams or Cowboys?
I think you have to go Cowboys.
See, I think I might go Rams. Rams or Eagles?
Rams.
Agree. Rams or Lions?
Lions.
I think that one's really close. It's hard not to say Detroit right now, but especially with the...
It could go either way.
I think I go Rams. I think I go Rams again. Rams or Packers?
Oh, you know the answer to that. The Packers have the better quarterback, so it's got to be that.
And then I'm assuming 49ers we both agree on.
Yeah, it's the 49ers. Indeed, if the Rams were in a different division, I think they'd have a good chance.
I know, right? You know what? That's a great point when talking about going to the Super Bowl. The division it's very unfortunate that they have San Francisco there, because I think I'd take them to win any other division in the NFC. I don't know how. Maybe it's your effect, but I'm really bullish on the Rams heading into the next year. I could not believe what I saw this season.
Yeah, but you never know how these division odds are going to go, right?
Yep.
Like the favorites last season included the Jets were favorites for a while, Joe Burrow, the Eagles. No one had the Buccaneers winning. So there's always room for things to surprise you. It would not surprise me if the Rams won the division. And from there,
and it's funny. Just a couple of weeks ago, we did the NFC contenders. I think I had them at 6, but just recently, listening to some Eagles podcasts, I bump them above Philly. And then they're right there on that, like 5 or 4, depending on what you do with Detroit. And I think I put them ahead of Dallas too right now. It's going to be a tough offseason question to have. But yeah, future looks really bright, at least the near future for the Rams. We'll see what happens once they have to consider the future at quarterback. But let's go on to the Seattle Seahawks. And speaking of potentially looking in a new direction in quarterback, the conversation we're going to focus around here is, should Seattle look to replace Geno Smith? He's entering the second year of the 3-year deal that he signed following the breakout 2022 campaign. Just recently, his $12.7 million base salary was guaranteed, but Seattle can still trade that salary along with Geno, and that would be gone. It would be off their books. However, March 18th, $9.6 million signing bonus that cannot be traded comes into effect. So you're looking at only a few weeks here where the Seahawks would really be looking to trade Geno before $22.3 million is guaranteed for next year. I guess we could start with that. If you were Seattle, would you even be looking to trade Geno to begin with?
It's going to be a tough offseason for the Seahawks because they've given no indication that they want to rebuild, but there's a question mark at the quarterback position, and there's a lot of mixing up that this roster needs to do. The thing about Geno Smith that makes him really hard to move off of is it's very likely that you will get solid quarterback production at an affordable price. And the only ways you can really get that are drafting a rookie or getting lucky and having a guy like Geno sign a fair deal for you. Right? Because if they try and go into free agency, Kirk Cousins isn't taking a cupcake deal. And otherwise, there's just nobody, I think, as affordable and as reliable as Geno Smith. Mm-hmm. And trading up for a rookie, there's certainly no guarantee you're going to get effective production out of that. So I think you have to sort of stick with Geno Smith, and that's the benefit of the contract they signed with him, because they can keep him sort of as long as they want without a lot of difficulty. But I don't think there's a feasible way to move off of him.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to make it clear. I like Geno. I don't think he's going to be the guy to take Seattle on a deep playoff run. We knew, even when he was playing great football just 2 years ago, that first half of the season where his numbers were amazing, there was a lot of luck involved in that. If you go back and look deep in the numbers, there were a lot of passes he was throwing that probably shouldn't have been completed, could have been intercepted. And we talked about that on our show. Second half of that season, Geno dipped a little bit and you saw him blown out by the 49ers in the playoffs. But even last year, completion percentage down, 10 less touchdowns, lower passer rating. It was not the same Geno Smith. And that's not to say there aren't a lot of other issues with the Seahawks. But I'm just not, if I were a Seahawks fan, I'm not confident in Geno. Despite he did have 7 game win. I think it was 7 drives, go ahead touchdown passes in overtime or at the end of the game. The most ever in a single season for the NFL. But they still missed the playoffs. So, I don't think they're going to trade him. I'd be very, very surprised if they did. But I would not be surprised if they went with the quarterback 16th overall. And someone who could be there, they have a new head coach, Mike McDonald. You know who their new offensive coordinator is?
Who, Paul?
He's the Washington Huskies assistant head coach / offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach, Ryan Grubb. Michael Penix is going to be there at 16. Would it be stunning to me if, maybe not 16, but even in the second round, potentially Michael Penix could be there? I think you're still going to see Seattle take a quarterback on day 1 or early day 2. And that's going to be, for any new coaching regime, a lot of times they want a new guy. Seattle's in the perfect place to usher in a new quarterback. I think that's going to happen this offseason. And for a year, have him sit behind Geno. I think Geno's a great guy to have guide a rookie. I'd be thrilled with that if I were a Seahawk fan.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then you can make this year a sort of transitional year, right? You'll cut Jamal Adams. You'll cut Tyler Lockett. You sort of get some big contracts off the books, and you get ready to move on. On the other hand, though, here's something Seahawks fans might be thinking. We're going to be at 16. Geno's pretty good. We were competitive last year. And boy, Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, what a drop-off after their first seasons, right? There were some big disappointments for them for different reasons. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Seahawks, who always sort of, to me, it seems like they want to compete more than maybe they should, but this team's always looking to win. I would not be surprised to see them double down, take an offensive tackle, and try and figure out how to make this team a playoff contender this year.
Yeah, that was something I actually always admired about Seattle, even though I thought sometimes it could come back to bite them. I mean, we've seen them in the past take these huge swings, and you go, man, were they really just one player away from being able to compete this year? Like, probably not. Like, that's a lot to give up. You think about that
Leonard Williams trade in the middle of the season.
Oh, I remember we talked about that, and I think you said, like, I like Leonard Williams a lot, but this Seahawks team is not ready to win a Super Bowl, and this was a Super Bowl kind of a trade. It's admirable that they always try and go to win. I 100% think that, but at some point you have to look at what works in the NFL, and most of the time it's slowly build. Unfortunately, it's slowly building up. It's not like the NBA where you could just go and get 2 free agents and you're ready to win immediately.
Yeah, so we'll see what they do. There's definitely a few different options, but like a lot of teams that are picking outside of the top 3 or 4, it's all going to come down to what you think about the quarterbacks and what your vision of the team is. And John Schneider, I never know what that guy's going to do, but Seahawks fans can tell you if it involves a first-round pick, it's probably going to not work out.
One time, so Ziggy and I used to announce Notre Dame games in the student center, or not the student center, but
in the stadium,
booth.
At the stadium, in a press box.
Yeah, at the stadium. We were up in the press box. It was really cool. And one thing that was always exciting about it is that, at ND, you do have like scouts and general managers come to some of these games at least when it's a big game. A lot of times you would see, I met Rick Spielman one time at Louisville. I kept trying to remember some other guys who were there Rick Spielman was super nice to me, actually. He came up and asked us about who was announcing, what we wanted to do with our lives. Very nice guy. But John Schneider was actually at Notre Dame one day. And I remember looking down in the press box, and 5 guys down is John Schneider. I was like, probably shouldn't disrupt.
No, they're at work.
But yeah, it's crazy. When you're up in the box, it is dead quiet. We were there having a good time, but a lot other guys are at work. Scouts are working extremely hard, but it was kind of cool. John Schneider was there. And you could tell he was the guy in the room. A lot of people went up to him. I was not one of them, but Seahawks, they got a good one. Okay. We're going to move on to the Arizona Cardinals. Just a reminder to if you're enjoying this video, leave a comment, let us know what you think so far. Again, subscribing to the channel is huge for us as we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the draft. We appreciate everyone who's been listening along the way. We have one more team left of these NFC West teams before a quick conversation on Justin Fields, which we may or may not have Ziggy's full attention for, as he is a little skeptical about the importance.
I've got things to say about Justin Fields.
Okay. All right. That's great. I'm happy with doing this, Ziggy, because as I said off the top, we were debating whether or not we wanted to continue the division breakdowns, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation right now. Maybe it's just the Ziggy effect, though.
Well, the NFC West, I think, is one of the most interesting divisions. And the team, I think, with the biggest range of outcomes among the teams in this division is the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, that's why you're the best in the business here. We'll transition lastly to the Arizona Cardinals. And our question for Arizona is, should they be all in on Kyler? Because something that hasn't really been talked about is last season at this time, everyone expected the Cardinals to move off Kyler Murray. It was all, okay, they have Houston's pick, they have their own pick, they're going to be absolutely horrible. They have to be the favorite to land Caleb Williams. I remember we had shows where we talked about the Cardinals being the number one team likely to get the number one pick in the NFL draft. And, they're at 4. They're not quite at 1. The season was up and down. But from where they were last year, and you look about Cliff Kingsbury fired, Steve Keim fired, new head coach, new GM. They were rated, I think, the second worst in the NFL Players Association survey that rated team facilities, coaches, and quality of life. I mean, it was a disaster. Kyler had a torn ACL. Being a Cardinal fan was a bad spot to be in. To where they are now with Jonathan Gannon, I really like the guy. I know he's quirky. I know people make fun of him a lot, and we're kind of writing him off after his intro videos where he just kind of seemed like a strange guy. But he had that team playing really hard, Ziggy. And when Kyler Murray came back, we saw a lot of flashes of the guy who earned that big contract that he got. So I'll ask you again, like I said off the top, do you think the Cardinals should be all in on Kyler, or should they be considering, we have a high pick, maybe we can make a move for one of those top 3 quarterbacks?
The thing that makes me optimistic about Kyler Murray is that, it's tough missing almost a full season of football, being out of the field for a whole year. Yeah. His last 3 games were all pretty good, right? He played very well against the Bears. He played well against the Eagles, and he played well against the Seahawks. I mean, over those games, threw 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, like 670 yards or something, almost 700. So Kyler Murray definitely showed that he can still be that guy. And I wonder, in order to get one of the top couple quarterbacks, the Cardinals would have to move Kyler Murray and their number 4 draft pick, and maybe even that Texans draft pick that they have in order to go up and get one of those guys. What are the chances that that player actually turns out better than Kyler Murray?
Yeah,
right. You look, especially the start of Kyler Murray's career, his first 3 seasons, he was incredible. So it's very difficult for me to see why the Cardinals should move on from him, when instead you've got an opportunity to really take a step forward and improve this team, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. should be right there for you. Paris Johnson is going to continue to develop as a left tackle. You've got a few exciting players on defense. I really think that this Cardinals team, if they play this offseason right with all their cap space and draft capital, could really build something around Kyler Murray next year.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. And what I wrote down was, if they had the number 1 pick in the draft, if they could get Caleb Williams, I would still go Caleb over Kyler. I think Kyler's great, but I would still go Caleb over Kyler, especially you get that rookie contract. But from there, they're not even picking 2. You can't go and get Drake May. I'd probably still take Kyler over May. So it's not like they can easily get one of those top guys. The Bears would never. I'd be stunned if the Bears moved off that number 1 pick, as we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, Kyler Murray, you want a quarterback to turn out like Kyler. There are not a lot of guys in the league who have his superstar potential. I would 100%, given where they are, go get him a weapon. Get him a Malik Neighbors. Get him it's great to have arguably the best wide receiver prospect in years in Marvin Harrison Jr., who should be there at 4. You expect him to be there at 4 right now. I think they're in a nice spot where he'll have a full off season with new offensive coordinator, with the new head coach. get him adjusted. He doesn't have a torn ACL this time. And with a couple new weapons, it'll take some time to build it up. But, the Cardinals are in a nice spot.
Yeah, and I know Kyler Murray rushing wise didn't look like his old self last year. But the thing is it takes about 18 months to fully recover from an ACL tear. People forget like how invasive a surgery ACL repair is. They've got to go into your knee and replace joints. So I'm really
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm really excited to see a more agile, ready to run, ready to play Kyler Murray.
That's what a lot of people have forgotten this year too, is that he didn't just return from an ACL injury. He returned from an ACL injury in the middle of the season. Like it was week 12 or something when he came back, 11.
Yeah, he played 8 games, so that sounds right. Week 11 or week 10.
This was right around when everybody's, head first into the regular season. Their bodies are getting adjusted to playing. Kyler's making his first action, and I thought he looked really good. There were a few games, particularly that Eagles game stood out to me, and I know the Eagles defense was bad this year.
He still had a better game than most quarterbacks you faced them.
Oh yeah, when he came in, they were 3-5, and they ended the year 4-13. So it's not like this Cardinals team's going to be world beaters next year, but the Kyler Murray effect was very prominent when you watch the Cardinals. They were a team you could no longer just overlook, and that's 100% because he entered the fold. And I'd be excited to see what you got next year. Now, if he stinks, if he reverts back to the form where everyone wanted to blow everything up, now we have a problem next offseason. But given the way things played out in 2023, I'd be really excited bringing in likely a new weapon on the outside and he's only 27 years old. I think he's going to be 27. Yeah. So this will be his age 27 season. He's still a young guy. Kyler Murray is a young quarterback. It's a good time still to be a Cardinal fan, which is crazy from where we were recently. So you're on board. Definitely roll forward with Kyler.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I think Monty Austin-Fort had one of the best off seasons as a general manager last year. Trading for that Texans pick, I don't think it ultimately turned into what they were hoping, but it's still a first-round draft pick. There will be a lot of talent and a lot of positions available for this team. I'm really excited to see where things go.
Seeing CJ Stroud take off the way that he did must have been tough for Cardinals fans because you were hoping that pick was also going to be top 5. Can you imagine if they had 4 and 5 in the draft or 3 and 4?
People were thinking they'd have 1 and 2 and take Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, or trade one of those picks and get another haul for a quarterback. That was the dream. Unfortunately for Cardinals fans, that didn't happen. But still, I think they're in a good spot, especially compared to where you expected them to be just a year ago.
It is nice when your number one offseason need matches up with a free agent market that's full of players who fit that need and arguably the best prospect positionless in the entire NFL draft. And you got a chance to get him.
I mean, and even if they don't get Harrison, Neighbors, everything that comes out of Neighbors is just glowing review after glowing. I saw someone say if Harrison wasn't in this draft, Neighbors would be by far and away the number 1 receiver in basically any other class. Like it's a great time.
Is also no sleeper either.
Oh yeah, he's also great. They can do whatever they want, and if a quarterback falls, they could trade back. It's believe it or not, we'll probably have a lot of Cardinals coverage over the next few months. All right, let's close out here because Ziggy's a little under the weather. I'm a little bit less under the weather, and it's getting fairly late in the evening.
But there's one thing we have to address.
There is one thing we have to address. And this is so funny to me. So earlier this week, Justin Fields and his dog Uno unfollowed the Bears on Instagram. And that blew up, as it tends to happen when star athletes unfollow their team. Unsurprisingly, people notice it and bring it to attention. I actually got a text from one of our friends, Tim, who's a big Bears fan. I woke up at like 7 a.m. to a text, and Tim's in Central Time Zone, so he was all over this. He's just said, "It's over, man." A big Fields advocate. He said, "It's over. It's done." And it just was like article title that says Justin Fields' dog Uno unfollows Bears. So obviously that explodes. And Fields went on the St. Brown Brothers podcast with Amon-Ra and EQ to clarify exactly what's going on. So Ziggy, if you don't mind, I'm going to read you his quotes
Go
from
ahead.
the
He said
St.
some
Brown
silly
Brothers
things.
podcast. He says, "Why do people take social media so serious? I still mess with the Bears, this and that. I'm just trying to take a little break. I unfollowed the Bears and the NFL. I'm not just trying to have football on my timeline. It's something that I don't want to see on my timeline. I'm about to go on vacation. I don't want to see no football. And guess what? Either keep Fields. We want Fields. It's either draft Caleb. I'm tired of hearing the talk. I just want it to be over." I just think that sounds really sad. Like you forget he's just a 24-year-old guy at the end of the day, but I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I want to sit here and call Justin Fields a baby, I do kind of get why this is tough. But at a certain point, I mean, look, this is the business. You got to put up results at a certain point. And it's hardly shocking that the Bears organization and the fans aren't happy with what they've seen. There's like this bizarre movement you're seeing among Bears fans to try and they're trying to gaslight themselves to convincing that Justin Fields is going to be a good NFL quarterback if
They've
they
been
just
doing it
stick
for
with him
years.
another year. I find this whole situation baffling. There's an obvious choice here. You say Justin,
and they're going to do it. He knows.
Yeah, they're obviously going to do it. They're going to say, Justin, thanks for the ride. You threw 40 touchdowns. You threw 30 interceptions. We gave you a million chances to learn how to throw the ball. You couldn't get it done. We appreciate everything you've done for us, but we have to get someone new now. Because, look, I mean, you can take Marvin Harrison Jr., you can take Joe Alt, you can do whatever you want. But if you don't have the quarterback, it's very difficult to succeed in the modern NFL. And it's unlikely you're going to get a chance at a player like Caleb Williams anytime soon.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I do think Justin's tired of hearing the noise. I would probably be as well. But at the same time, go up and down the people. If we're going back to talking about his Instagram, go up and down the people that Justin Fields follows. It's Justin Jefferson, it's Bears teammates, it's all NFL players, a ton of NFL players. You're not taking football off your timeline. At the end of the day, if that's your explanation, you're not going to have football come off your timeline. I think he knows he's done Chicago. I think he's pissed off about it. Probably should be. They want to move on to someone else. But if you want to get off social media, you delete the app or you delete your account. You don't just unfollow the Bears and the NFL. Like if I unfollow my company and I go, yeah, I am a sports media producer. I just don't want to see any more of the New Heights edits in my timeline, Ziggy. You'd be like, I think you're just pissed off with your company.
Yeah, no, I mean, if as Justin Fields says, right, he says social media is not a big deal, it's not serious, then what's so serious? Like, it's not like the Bears are posting things like, we're getting ready to take Caleb Williams, F Justin Fields, we don't like that guy. Like, they're not posting anything about him, right? The Chicago Bears are posting like Virginia McCaskey celebrating another birthday, wish her a happy birthday, or like, remember the 1985 Bears when we actually won something. Like, that's what's going on. It has nothing to do with Justin Fields.
Oh, that's amazing. God, even with the 6 Ziggy, that was unbelievable. Yeah, it's he's mad. It's a natural reaction. I get it. And I hope he goes out and at the next place balls out because there are a lot of suitors for Justin Fields. Apparently at the Senior Bowl, a lot of teams are starting to ask the Bears, what's going on? Is he available? People forget, Justin Fields, 24 years old, skill set that very few quarterbacks in the league can match. Really only Lamar and his rushing abilities. I think he's one of the more coveted players at the position that you could have in terms of someone on the market. And he has superstar potential still. It's starting to wane because he still hasn't really learned to throw the ball consistently. But if I were a team like the Falcons or someone with a bunch of weapons, take a swing, see if it works. I mean, if it turns out to work, it'd be unbelievable. But he's someone that probably needs a fresh start.
Yeah, it's just not going to work in Chicago. There's too much bad history. And again, if you're acquiring Justin Fields for like a 4th round pick, a 3rd round pick, you can sort of say, look, the upside here is bigger than anything else we could do with a 3rd round pick, so we're going to take him. But if you're the Bears, you can't keep him around. The locker room it's too factionalized. You got to just move on.
I know that's where I know people have said draft Caleb, keep Fields.
It's hard to do. And the second
Caleb
Williams has a bad game, everyone's going to say, bring back Justin. You can't do that.
What's the saying? It's when you have 2 QBs, or if you have a QB system, you have none. Like, that's sort of what you would be at. He has to be the situation for Caleb where he can go out there, and feel like he can do anything. Make any mistake you need, and you still have the job. That's what it would be. But yeah, I think Fields, he knows his time's coming up in Chicago, and the best thing for him and the Bears. And I don't want to make it sound like, it wasn't like his entire time in Chicago was doom and gloom. They closed last year playing really good football. Actually had a chance, if some things fell their way, to even sneak into the playoffs. Like, by the end of the year, Chicago was playing good, and that's part of the reason why so many Bears fans, like a lot of Bears fans, are in his corner. But the realistic ones know at the end of the day, go and get the number one prospect and you build from there. I think there is positive groundwork to work off of with Justin Fields, right? Like you don't think the guy stinks, do you?
I think it is unlikely Justin Fields will ever be an effective NFL quarterback. At no point, here's the fact: at no point in his career has he been a net positive throwing the ball. Until Justin Fields becomes a net positive throwing the ball, people compare him to Lamar Jackson. In year 2, Lamar Jackson was a big net positive throwing the ball, right? Like, his second year, he threw for 36 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
Lamar Jackson's a great passer.
Yeah, is he the best passer in the league? No, but Lamar was able to use his rushing ability to threaten defenses and unlock passes. I remember when he came out that Dolphins game, his second season, and just showed the world that he was ready to play football?
Yeah,
Justin Fields has never had moments remotely like that.
Yeah. No, that's the difference.
You got to be able to be a net positive throwing the ball in the NFL. Justin Fields just has never been, and I don't think he ever will be. So yeah, I think he's done.
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what winds up happening. The Bears are going to have a great offseason ahead of them, likely with a new quarterback, bunch of draft picks, another first rounder. We'll have tons and tons of Bears coverage coming out, but that was one story we wanted to hit on because, when you have a star unfollow his team, that should be newsworthy. It is newsworthy.
Should it be newsworthy? I don't know, but NFC North drama is always big.
Yeah, we'll take it, right? I would love for them to keep Fields. There's nothing I'd like more than the Bears to keep Fields and not draft Caleb Williams. I'll put that
absolutely
out there.
No. I mean, run even better. Tyson Bagent, he looked pretty good for a couple of games, didn't he?
All right. Yeah. You know what? He was amazing. I think they should roll with Bagent next year. Maybe Bagent or Fields. Let the two of them duke it out and see what happens. So there you have it. Another episode of the Paul Farrington Show, NFC West and Justin Fields edition. We'll be back with more coming up. I think we have one more show, Ziggy, in our old studio before we have to finally move out.
Ride.
Figure out where we're going to go. We're a homeless podcast for a little while here.
If any of our followers have cheap land available in New Jersey, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. We're looking for a new studio. So we'll see what happens there. Again, thanks to everyone who's listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Drop mailbag questions for us. We love doing the mailbags. We're going to have probably one of those a week. Every now and then I try and convince Ziggy to do 2, but he talks me back.
We want the mailbag to be special. We want it to be special.
It should be special. You're right. Just like that, talks me back out of it. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But again, thanks to everyone who's listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Paul Farrington Show.